Radio Pictures Incorporated release Walt Disney's second full-length animated film, Pinocchio. Tom and Jerry make their debut, and this year would also see Elmer Fudd for the very first time. The year is 1940, and this Nash Ambassador Overhead Valve 6 was on offer over at Nash. But before getting into this one, I'm your host, Jay. Welcome to What It's Like, the automotive channel that features cars that were sculpted in clay or drawn on paper before being made in steel. Not like the molded in plastic crap of today. Well, we do feature some appliances every now and then. I guess I'm going to have to redo this intro. Nah, we're keeping it. We post between 3 and 5 episodes a week. If you dig old cars in mini documentary format, this might turn out to be your new favorite channel. If you dig, subscribe and hit the bell icon next to it to never miss a video. 1940 Nash model lineup. But before getting into all of that, a little bit of company history on Nash, because the late 1930s, early 1940s was a transitional time at Nash. The founder of Nash Motor Corporation was Charlie Nash, who came from nothing. He was abandoned as a child by his parents at age 6 and not having anywhere to go, nowhere to go, no family, nobody. A judge ordered him to work on a farm as an indentured servant. Charlie had other plans, though, and he would run away. It's an incredible rags to riches story, and it's all covered in this episode if you want to know all of the fine details. But the short end of it is William Durant would hire him as a cushion stuffer at the Durant Dort Carriage Company. When Durant would get into the automotive business, Charlie went with him. First at Buick, eventually becoming president of General Motors. That was after Durant was forced out of General Motors for over-leveraging, buying companies that wasn't quite profitable. Durant, having a Napoleon-like complex, would regain control of General Motors just a few years later, resulting in Charlie Nash's exit from the company after a failed attempt to try to take over Packard with Walter P. Chrysler. Nash would catch wind of a company that would be for sale, the Thomas B. Jeffrey Company, which was based in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Nash Motor Car Company rose from the ashes of the Thomas B. Jeffrey Company. Not that the Thomas B. Jeffrey Company was in any bad shape or anything like that. That's a whole nother story. Would be watched after this one. Very interesting, colorful, convoluted story of that company. Fast forward to the late 1930s. Charlie Nash is ready to retire. He needs a successor, and to Charlie Nash, there was only one person he wanted to run his company, George Mason. But there was a problem. George Mason was president of Kelvinator, an appliance company based in Detroit, Michigan. And George Mason really liked working at Kelvinator. I've been told in past episodes that I don't put enough emphasis on Kelvinator. I don't know if I can say it like Arnold and say Kelvinator. Anyway, George Mason really liked working at Kelvinator, so Charlie would buy a controlling stake in Kelvinator so Mason could control both. It was the biggest merger of two companies that built completely different products at the time. The merger took place in 1937. The merger also benefited Nash drastically because now Nash had access to Kelvinator developments. 1938 was the first year of the Weather Eye conditioned air system. Not air conditioning as we know it today. This system was a heat and ventilation system. It would become a staple for Nash cars going forward. It was the first hot water heater, which leads us to the 1940 Nash model lineup, was broken down into 3 models. In the basement was the Lafayette Series 4010. 6-cylinder, which was identical in appearance to the senior Nash, but had shorter hood and fenders, riding the shortest wheelbase of 117 inches, powered by a flathead 6 making 99 horsepower. In the middle is our featured car, the Ambassador 6, which rides the in-between chassis of 121 inches, powered by an overhead valve inline 6 making 105 horsepower, and then perched at the top was the Ambassador 8, riding the longest wheelbase on offer, 125 inches, powered by 115 horsepower inline 8 that had overhead valve. Both the Ambassador 6 and the Ambassador 8 used twin ignition 2 spark plugs per cylinder. Nash offered the Ambassador from 1927 through 1957. In 1954, Nash and Hudson merged to form the most underrated, overlooked company to ever spawn God's green earth, American Motors Corporation, or AMC for short. AMC would take the Ambassador from 1957 through 1974, offered in, and this is a bit tricky because the first part where Nash offers the Ambassador, it's not really generations because they're just series of years, which I guess you could say that that's what a generation is. But for example, 1935 through 1942, Nash changed the design a couple times during those years. And also they went from unit body to frame to back to unit body. So it's super confusing, but I guess you can say it's around 14 generations. 1940 falls in the year set just mentioned, which was produced from 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, you see what I mean? 40, 41, 42. Couple different body designs in that quote-unquote generation. To expand a little bit on the point just previously mentioned about the unit body chassis, in 1935, Nash would introduce unit body. But by 1940, they would go back to the rigid girder X-type frame with box section, side rails. I was always under the impression that Nash was unit body from 1935 until they went out in 1957, but this revelation shows that that's not 100% true. In 1940, Nash used the double frame construction with its own subframe. Ads claimed it to be twist-proof. Options. Not getting into all of the options, but here are a few. Fender skirts, radio, heater, clock, cigar lighter, radio antenna, bed seats. Yes, believe it or not, this feature dates back to 1936. Nash bed in a car. From 1936 through 1949, the seats would operate different than they did in the 50s. The front seat would stay in place. The rear seats have a hinge on the seat back, allowing the rear seat back cushion to be propped up level, which created an opening between the passenger compartment and the trunk, which allowed 2 1938 sized adults to sleep in the back with the legs in the trunk compartment. In 1949, they would update that to make the front seats fold down and take up the leg room of the rear passenger compartment and just make it into a bed that way. 1940 is more or less a redesigned version of the 1939 car, but there are some key differences worth talking about, so let's compare. 39 on top, 40 on the bottom, starting in the front. Here I go correcting myself again. It's more or less a facelift, not a total redesign. Bumper blades are different. It's a single blade on the 39 versus the 40 has overriders and overrider bars that could be added. Headlight situation is what's really interesting. They are circular on the 40, and 40 was the first year for the sealed beam headlights, I believe. 39, they're an interesting shape, but not only that, look at the headlight lenses themselves. They have this crease in them that flows into the fender, which is super interesting. So by looking at this, it looks like the fenders are different between these. Yeah, the fenders are definitely different between these two. Maybe I'm not seeing it right, but it looks like in the catwalk region, or what they would call the catwalk region, it's wider on the 40 than it is on the 39. The 39 also has a single piece windshield, whereas 40, for whatever reason, they go back to a split windshield. It looks like the windshield might be slightly bigger, and maybe that's why they went to the split windshield. Let's talk specs. 209.2 inches long. It rides a wheelbase of 121 inches. It weighs 3,125 pounds. Price, $925, which would be equivalent to you spending $21,239.65 in the year 2025. Absolute bargain. Total 1940 Nash calendar year production was 63,617 units. Moving on to engine, only one engine on offer for this car, 234 cubic inch displacement overhead valve, twin ignition, 3.8 liters. It was good for 105 horsepower at 3,400 RPM, 190 pound-feet, or 257 newton meters, around 1,050 RPM, with a bore of 3.375 inches and a stroke of 3.75 inches. Twin ignition, 2 spark plugs per cylinder, 7 main bearing crankshaft, extra rigidity. I found this 1940 Ambassador 6 displayed at the Gilmore Auto Museum out in Hickory Corners, Michigan. Let me tell you about the Gilmore Auto Museum. If you've never been there before, it's definitely a bucket list place to visit. They got 400 cars on display at any given time on their 90-acre campus. It might be the largest museum complex this side of the Mississippi. Don't quote me on that, but I think it might be. They have multiple different buildings. They got a Lincoln dealership. They got a Cadillac dealership, Model A showroom, Pierce Arrow building. I mean, the list goes on and on. 4 hours of operation directions to get the full scoop on what the Gilmore has to offer because they host lots of events during the summer. Be sure to click the link below after the show. Let's talk styling. Just look at these headlights with this piece down here. Bumpers are pretty basic with overrider bars, 2 overriders and or bumperettes. You got a horizontal grill. Yes, you got a horizontal grill and you got a vertical grill. The vertical grill looks very LaSalle, with Nash script right there. Look at how far that hood protrudes over the fenders. Hood ornament and or mascot. The hood has an ever so slight phantom crease that goes back towards the split windshield with windshield wipers that come together. Notice there isn't any bright work around the windshield. Absolutely massive fenders. Which are rolled down here. The Nash wheels are very basic, just Nash script on a dog dish. Check out this fender profile. It is unique to this car. It has ribs on the fender. I can't think of another company that did that. If you know of a different company that did that, put it in the comment section below. So it has an external cowl vent. Notice the peak continues on the roof. All steel roof. Antenna is mounted to the cowl on the driver's side, or the firewall, I guess. Driver's side. The mirror is mounted to the door itself. The drip rail starts right on top of it. Well, not on top of the mirror itself, but just above. Just above where the drip rail starts. And it runs the cabin of the car, going all the way back. Running boards. Here's what a 12-inch shoe looks like at the front. They do taper as it goes back to the back. Same 12-inch shoe. The front door has one external hinge, and then the other hinge is on the inside, whereas the back door has both of the hinges exposed. And the door profile looks different, so they didn't just take, well, they couldn't. Yeah, the door profile is different. So they didn't just take the rear door. I'm sorry, they didn't just take the front door and reverse it and put it on the back. They're two totally different doors. Rear fenders are rolled as well. Gasoline filler is on the driver's side. Check out these brake lights. It's not one layer. The bumpers in the rear mimic the bumpers in the front with overriders and or bumperettes. But they are a different profile. Look at how much more curved this is. Comes to more of a peak at the back here to coincide with this spine. Split window in the back. More Nash script. On the positive side, Mason era Nash. Nice styling, smooth performance, quality. Relatively easy on the budget, even the convertibles, if you can find them. Good club support against it. Limited availability, parts, rust prone, and people that know these cars are getting few and far between. All right, now it's time for Would You Rather. Two scenarios today. You know, that's never fair, but which one would you rather have? 1940 Studebaker Commander, or 1940 Nash Ambassador 6, or 1940 Hudson Deluxe 6, or 1939, because in my opinion, I think the 39 has a better looking front end, Hudson 6. I'm going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free, pause the video. On to the second scenario, 1940 DeSoto Custom, or 1940 Nash Ambassador 6, or 1940 Graham Shark Nose with a 6 that could be naturally aspirated or supercharged, your pick, or 1940 Packard 6. Once again, going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free, pause the video. Now it's time for Name That Tune. First person to get both the name of the band and the song title correctly in the comment section will have their comment pinned to the top of it. So a couple things before I sign off here. I forgot to ask earlier, are these solar panels or skylights? Interesting, nonetheless. Also, this is completely random and it's kind of out of left field, but I heard on the radio the other day, I gotta get out of this place by the Animals, and the drum line is very similar in parts where the snare drum is played vigorously, in my opinion, to Tears of a Clown by Smokey Robinson. What do you guys think? Did you guys ever make that connection? Maybe I'm just weird and just hearing things that don't exist, but I just thought it was interesting. But yeah, so I appreciate everything that you guys bring to this car community. I loved reading the stories and the memories that you all share. It's great. Thank you all so much for everything. And until next time, toodaloo! Well, if you made it this far, welcome to the after show. This part of the video doesn't have any sound or commentary, but it gives you the idea. It gives you the opportunity to see this car in its entirety like you never saw it before. Enjoy.